So, going to start this video out by apologizing. The audio quality in this is super crappy. It's from me handling the GoPro a bit too much. There's a bunch of feedback from my hand moving on the tripod. So, with that being said, we're going to pop right into this. Our project here is installing two fully assembled third members from Marlin Crawler. They have 4.88 Yukon gears. They with ARB Lockers in them. I have the wiring for the switches, the compressor install, all of that's done already. I will have a video upcoming on how I did that, where I got my switch panel and everything. But to start this project, we need to pull the front differential. That requires us pulling both CVs. I have not removed the staked bolts that are in there. This would be a great time to do it. I don't end up doing it. I haven't had issues pulling them, so with a grain of salt and everything, I probably should have. I probably will regret that, but it is what it is. So we pull the CVs. There are three mounts. There's the one in the front you can see. There is one offset to the driver's side by where the CV and intermediate shaft connect to each other, and then one on the passenger side, kind of off to the side of the tail of the third member. So we'll start by getting the CVs out. Then we will loosen up the mounts, and we'll try and slowly drop this down. It does not go well. Spoiler alert, it falls. Thankfully, it was when I was already letting it down off the jack, but this would be much easier with two people. I did it with just myself, so it's a little cumbersome, if you will. But yeah, we're going to get into this. Again, apologies for the audio. Shoot me some feedback in the comments. Let me know if you guys are enjoying kind of a bit of a build series on this 4Runner, everything I'm doing to it. I will eventually get a walk around video in. Do you want to see more wheeling? Everyone loves wheeling videos. I hope to get out with it more. I do have some from Moab upcoming here. But yeah, let me know. With that being said, we're going to get into this. Appreciate you all watching.
So things escalated quickly because this fell out. So let's see. This is the front mount. So this is what you're looking at from the front of the truck. I left this bolt in. I was able to pull this bolt out. I left this bolt in. I pulled both CVs. I used the bottle jack to get the CV angle or the CV straight. I was able to pull them out off the bolts, and then I kind of rested them there. I set the bolts in between, and then my plan was to slowly drop it down on the jack. If you notice, the jack is still almost fully extended because slowly dropping on the jack didn't happen. This on was the savior, so I tilted this down, let it touch the floor. You can see, this is going to the passenger side. It stretched a little bit, but all in all, we're pretty good. So what we're replacing is this whole assembly here. So this has to come off. This has to come off. This will come out. This mount has to come off. And then we'll take the front third, put it all together, set the RTV. So you can see there's factory RTV on here. They do sell gaskets for this. All right, regroup. I know it doesn't look clean, but it's clean. This is for the tool to get these guys off. It's a 16 mil. So pops on there. We'll pop those off. Start popping the face off. I've got drain down there. I'm hoping it'll go through the holes mostly, but we'll see what happens. So, correction. This is a 14. I noticed 16 had a bit much movement, but I bought a kit of these, so it's a 14 mil to get these off. So yeah, I think we'll start with this. I'm going to leave all this together, just pop this bolt off. I'm going to try and pop this off as one piece. We're going to see how that works. I'm going to make a mess. That's just how this goes. But we'll pop this off. We'll let it drain some more. I'm not going to do this on the floor. It's way too nice to have a table. So we'll do that. I'll probably use the impact and pop these mounts off. This one can actually stay on. This one needs to come off. And yeah, we'll just get to taking it apart. So this is where we left off last night. Got the intermediate shaft tube off over here. I hammered on this a bunch. All the bolts are out. It hasn't come out yet, as you can tell. 30-plus-year-old RTV is very strong. My neighbor had a scraper basically made to take diff covers off. It's a custom tool, if you will. Took a bit, but I was finally able to slide that up through where one of the bolts are. There's a lip here, and I kept hitting that, and I was really very confused. So I actually got it in through here. Once I got it through here, I was able to work it around. I was able to pop the cover off, and then to get those out, the two intermediate shafts, I was able to get into the spider gears, and I actually just used a screwdriver, and they pushed out super easy. But once you get them out far enough, they just pull out. I didn't use a slide hammer. I didn't use bearing rollers, are both too big, so they didn't fit around. They weren't able to fit in here, but they came out super easy. So now I'm going to start clean. I'm going to clean up the back of this, clean up my mounts, kind of clean that stuff up, and then here's the Marlin third. So you can see here's the airline. There's the ARB locker in there. There's the air fitting. So those two shafts will get hammered in. That is exactly what the book's not out here anymore. That's what my manual tells me. You take a soft hammer, hammer them in. So we'll get this kind of fully assembled. I'll get the RTV setting up on this, and so RTV, and then I have to RTV the ADD actuator. We'll get that.
We got everything cleaned up. All my bolts are clean. I went ahead and cleaned the cover, all of my mating surfaces, any of the metal seals that I could, making sure all the surfaces are ready for RTV. There was no dirt in there that would get in the way of the sealing, so it didn't leak. And we're ready to put this thing back together. So I wanted to catch some of the RTV process. There's lots of things online you can read on how much you're supposed to use. My mating surfaces were super clean. The service manual itself, specifically for the half shaft piece where it attaches to the third, tells you to fill the trench or moat there. I'm using the Permatex Green gear oil gasket maker. I might end up using some Wright stuff later when I run out. But you can see I have it about half filled right now, about how much I'm using. You don't want it pushing out everywhere, but you want to make sure you have enough in there to seal. These are very tight tolerances, so again, you don't need a lot. The ADD housing even takes a little bit. So all my surfaces are super clean, and we're going to finish this up.
So this thing is getting heavier as we put it together. If any of you are curious about the amount of RTV, you can see it's squeezed out all the surfaces, and you saw how little I had in there. So these are 78 Newton meters, 58 foot-pounds. All of your 14 mil reverse starbit, whatever, all of these, same thing. 78 Newton meter, 58 foot-pounds. So that's for all of these. I've got it hooked up to my torque bench down there. It's a little awkward to get them on and off. It's not too terrible, but so that's installed. The diff is technically together. Now I just need to install my actuator, which we will do next. We'll get that put on there, get that tightened, and then we will work on the front plate. Everything's still intact. I haven't bent this. We've got good clearances down there. You can see, again, Marlin did all of this for the internals here. They set my pattern. They installed the locker, they did the tubing. This is a fully assembled third member, and I just have to put on all my shenanigans. So we are going to continue on here. Actuators next. Again, I'm trying to work this. You can see my RTV is getting a little limited, so we're going to do the actuator next, and then we'll get to here, and we'll see where we're at. If I need to go get more RTV, I will. Again, I do have ultra gray. I just need to verify that that would work. In place of this. They're both gray, but you know, who knows? I'm sure there's 5 different answers on the internet. So for the actuator, got my RTV on here. I'm kind of just following what they told me to do in the book, and they put their silicone gasket, whatever here. They put the cover on first, but I'm getting this on there. Probably not the brightest idea because I have 2 bolts here, but we have extensions for that. So I'm an idiot. Can't put this on till the cover. It covers these 2 bolts. You'd have to slide it on, all weird. So I'm going to quickly get some RTV around here, hopefully before this dries, and we'll get the cover started. I'll probably get, you know, at least these 2 tightened, everything else snugged, and then we can at least pop that on there before the RTV dries. And so yeah, don't be like me. Follow the directions. Gasket line. It's not pretty, but should be more than enough RTV. Again, super clean mating surface, except 2 spots up here, which I put a little extra in there, but yeah, not too worried. This is going to flatten out nicely. So just went into one minor issue. I had to rebend this a little bit. I actually took a screwdriver, spaced it in here, and then I pushed right where that bend is, right there. So it was hitting this metal piece in here. I also bent that in a little bit. That's just to keep oil out of your vent tube, keep it from clogging. So we do want that in there, but now I can get this on there. So we did it. One of the major gotchas I ran into is I had to rebend that airline more than once. Inside I put the cover on and pushed it a little bit. You can't test it by spinning these. You have to tilt it up, spin the pinion. That will move your ring gear, and you'll be able to tell. I heard it catch once I checked. It didn't look like it did any damage to the line. It just kind of popped it out. So I made sure I had clearance again, because I had clearance when I put this on. As you saw, when I put this on, it was still hitting that little metal vent thing for the actual diff vent. Now it spins clean. It's good to go. We'll see if it's good to go. We'll know real quick if we got a hole in the line. So everything's together. Everything's RTV'd. I'm definitely going to have to go get some more RTV, possibly, again, if that gray stuff doesn't work. So let's go through torque specs. Again, let's go back a page here. So your Torx bolt, your Torx bolts, 58 foot-pounds, and that is all of these. There's down here too, there's 2 down here. All of those are 58 foot-pounds. Nice and easy. These front cover bolts, let's go to the next page, 34 foot-pounds. Getting a little lower. My big 1/2 inch can still do it. Not ideal because it's got, it's reducing, it's got an extension, whatever. Close enough. These are all super tight. Not worried about it. And then these small guys, I actually have a 1/4 inch torque wrench for, which it about maxed them out, but they are 15 foot-pounds, 21 Newton meters. My small torque wrench goes to 22 point something Newton meters, so I was able to get all these tightened. We look around, I've got RTV popping out pretty much everywhere, except where the bolts are, which is kind of expected. So I am fairly confident this is fully sealed, ready to go. I'm now going to throw my back out, placing it underneath the front of the truck and just letting it sit. This RTV needs to set ideally overnight. So that's why I'm hoping to let it sit there. I'll get it installed later. For now, I'm just going to jack up the back of the truck, start working on the rear third. That should be way simpler than this. Worst thing we might have to worry.
Definitely famous last words, simpler. But we start with pulling the brake line and the 4 bolts holding the axle in place. Axle slid out super easily. Then I pulled all of the nuts on the studs for the third member. Don't forget the one all the way directly at the top that's kind of hiding, or else you'll sit there and wonder why the third member isn't coming out. I did pull my end links out. It allowed me to push, not the end links, the mounts for the rear sway bar. It allowed me to tilt the sway bar up and get the diff out easier. I also pulled the parking brake cable mounts. Those were required to pull out to slide the axles out far enough to get the third member out. I did not have to disconnect anything else. It was fairly straightforward up till this point. Diff came out super easy, besides the fact it just kind of dropped on my chest. I was not fully prepared for how heavy it was. But by the end of this video, I will be very strong. So, as you can see on the floor, there is RTV there already. I put RTV around and went to install the third member, ran into some issues. So, show and tell time. The third member is currently flipped upside down, so bottom's top, top is bottom. You can see there's marks on those super big washers. The factory third member did not have washers that big. I already ground down the tops there. It wasn't fitting in correctly. Little bit of research shows that the side gears are actually a little bit bigger. And you can see the marks on them right there. So they are hitting the housing itself when I'm trying to slide this in. And I've spent hours trying to get this in without touching anything. So before I went this route, I did end up shaving those top washers down. You can see there's a slight bend right there. Again, I have not hurt functionality here, but I did. This is causing some interference issues. So we're going to take a look at the housing now. You can see there are marks. There's actually some paint there. I used a paint pen to mark where the side gears were hitting because I'm going to end up grinding down this housing. At first I wasn't quite sure how to do this. I have some die grinders. I have an angle grinder. In the end, I went with the angle grinder because it is conical and it will kind of form to the shape of the housing because it's got that nice curve and bend in it. Whereas my die grinder has a hard back. It's not going to flex and it makes it very hard to move in there, get it to cut correctly. The big issue with the angle grinder is possibly removing too much material. So I had to go very slowly and just sit there and basically bench press the third member up and down to test fit it after some grinding, test fit, grinding, test fit. In the end, I did get it to fit in, as you'll see here shortly. But it took, again, probably about 2 hours worth of grinding and test fitting to get it to fit correctly. I was just being super careful. So next step is getting the third member in. So successfully got the third member in. You can see there's still a slight gap at the top there. That is because the airline is hitting the front of the housing. So next step is to bend that airline as well. So we want to fix that bend right there. We have to be fairly careful. We don't get into the ring gear. We don't bust any of the connections. We're going to use something semi-round, kind of put it in between the ring gear and wire as we do this. So was able to get the third member in. You can see how we bent the line up there. Everything fits. There's no interference. I didn't put RTV on it for the test fit. I have all my nuts and bolts, lock washers all cleaned, ready to go, both for the front and rear. Next step, while this is out, I'm kind of thinking, how should I run the airline? There's a 90 and a vertical adapter. I'm going to go with the vertical, run it by that control arm and up towards the front of the truck. So next step, get the third member installed. So axles are bolted back in. You can see they both spin fairly freely, or as freely as it's going to with how tight it's fitting right now. I was able to get the third member in, installed, no clearance issues. It is just currently snugged down right now. I'm letting the RTV set for a bit before I torque it down. Next step is working on running the airline up through that upper control arm while everything's drying. I can't put gear oil in it anyway, so we'll get that run up there, get my e-brake stuff reattached. You can see the wheel speed sensor hanging down there. I do end up cleaning that up completely, getting all their old gear oil off of it and stuff. But yeah, next step is to get the airline run and start torquing everything down once it's fully dried. So just a slight update, still haven't torqued down the rear third member, but I did get my brake lines reattached. Have to wait to bleed those till the truck's on the ground since the rear is higher than the front right now. As an aside, those back bolts take 51 foot-pounds. I did get the driveline put back in, so the rear drive shaft is connected and torqued down. All the parking brake cables are in, and again, just still kind of letting the RTV dry. So you can see we got the rear put back together. There's tires are on. Now it is time for the fun of getting the front in by myself. You can see I got it balancing on my floor jack. I did get some of the nuts started on the driver's side. I was using the jack stand to kind of hold everything in place while I did that. My hope is to get both of the CVs started just super loose, but get the nuts on. and then jack this up into place. It'll give me a little bit of stability side to side as I get everything lined up, and hopefully allow the the differential to get up into the mount super easy. But yeah, you can see there's just started there. So I'm going to go ahead, get the other side started, and see where this ends up. So I made some progress. You can't really see, that's a super bad view, but I have both CVs attached. There's the passenger side. You can see the driver's side is in there. Again, they're loosely snugged. I have a ratchet strapper on the rear to both of the rear mounts, keeping that even and keeping it from sliding. The hope being, as I jack it up, I will get it to slide into that front mount first, get that bolt started. I will then be able to move the jack and get both rear mounts put in place. So surprisingly, everything kind of went to plan. Once I got it jacked up enough and got the front bolt in that front mount, everything just kind of fell into place. I was able to move the jack, get that supporting the third member, jack the rear up without the ratchet strap there, and get both of the rear mounts started. Nothing's torqued to spec. I still have to tighten down the nuts on the CVs, but it's all in place. Nothing fell, didn't damage any of the boots on the CVs, so all in all, went pretty perfectly. So, went ahead and got everything torqued to spec. The front diff mount is, let's see, I'm staring at the book right now. Oh, here we go. 108 foot-pounds, and the two rear mounts are 123 foot-pounds. The CVs are 54 foot-pounds. So, got everything torqued to spec. The CVs were tough. I don't have a 3/8 torque wrench. It's actually on my list. My 1/2 inch is too big to fit in there. Obviously, my 1/4 inch doesn't go up high enough. So yeah, there you can see, just showing the torque specs. I was just reading off the same page in the book since this audio got super screwed up. But yeah, got everything torqued to spec, and the front is all buttoned up. So just kind of going through how I bleed brakes by myself. Doing this solo. I don't have a power bleeder or anything. I attach a line to the front bleeder, throw it in a container with some brake fluid in it so it doesn't suck back air. Using a line wrench, opening the bleeder until you get some fluid dripping out. If it's stuck, I will use a socket on top of it. I've found that to work for getting something unstuck instead of a line wrench. But in general, always use a line wrench on stuff like this. They are 10 mils, if you're curious. So I give it about 10 pumps when I'm just bleeding them. The master cylinder reservoir dropped pretty low. I bled the rears completely. Obviously, there was air in those lines because I had them completely disconnected. So those were bled till I saw no bubbles. The fronts just kind of going through, pushing the fluid through. I did this about a year ago, so I wasn't overly concerned. My hose there does have a weird tint to it, so ignore that. That's not the color of the fluid. But this was kind of the final step in getting everything buttoned up. So you can see we got it running. Went through, jacked the rear back up. Front airline, super easy. You saw how I ran the rear. The front's just directly below where the compressor is, so it's not that big of a deal. Got the harness, switches, everything's hooked up right now. Something to note, I reversed my wiring and my lockers weren't working at first, and I couldn't figure out why. The rear locker has to be on before the front will work. So basically, number 1 has to be hooked to your rear, number 2 to your front, or well, you can have your front come on first, probably less than ideal. So yeah, I made sure I got my wiring put the way it should be, so my rear is all the way on the right, then my front, then my compressor switch. That switch panel is actually from Etsy, from 555 Designs. If you're curious, look it up. Fit perfectly. So there's the lines run. There's my compressor. I did clean this up a little bit after it was done, but I got all the switches wired correctly. The lines run. The compressor had not kicked on again by this point. Both lockers are engaged and spinning. Everything seems to be working. There's no binding. There's no weird sounds. And I'm just kind of letting it break in. I did use break-in oil, some super cheap O'Reilly's 75.90. I have super nice red line, as you can see me showing here. So there's the 8090 I threw in it. I have the nice 7590 to put in after everything's done. There's a 500-ish mile braking period. You know, no full power. Don't wheel it. Don't tow with it. The first, I think, 100 miles. So they ask you to do 2 or 3 stints of about 20 miles at a cooldown, 20 miles at a cooldown. Just to make sure everything's working correctly. There's not a ton of binding when it heats up. And in general, you don't run into any issues with your very expensive, brand new third members. All in all, the install went super easy. I was a little nervous with the rear housing issues, but that's super common. It really didn't take that much material removal. So everything went smooth. Truck's running great. Again, the compressor's not kicking on. I don't have any air leaks. Also means those lines aren't damaged from where I was bending them and everything, if anyone was curious. And yeah, everything worked out. So I appreciate you all tuning in. Again, apologies for the audio in this video. I did pick up a new microphone. I actually am really liking how the audio is coming out. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I hope you like this. There'll be some more videos coming up of both wheeling and kind of how I did the wiring for the compressor and everything, and a couple other little projects. Otherwise, I've got some cool stuff planned for this winter. Thanks for tuning in.